A man travels to an island to rescue his abducted sister, but never returns to the mainland. Today I'm going to explain the 2018 movie Apostle. Set mostly in a remote island named Erisden, Apostle revolves around a British man, Thomas Richardson, who travels to the island to rescue his only sister, who has been kidnapped and held for ransom by some religious cult members. At the port, Thomas notices that his ticket is somewhat different from those of others, but then he quickly switches it with that of another man, while pretending to help the man. On reaching the island, the new arrivals are registered and given a receptacle. Afterwards, they are allowed to go into the village. Thomas attends his first service in Erisden, where he listens to Prophet Malcolm talk about how they encountered the goddess of the island, how she saved their lives, and how the goddess chose him as her prophet. The audience applauds at the end of his speech, and soon the service is over. Meanwhile, the man whose ticket Thomas exchanged his with is thought to have the ransom they requested. He's tortured in an attempt to get the money from him, and afterwards Quinn, one of the leading men in the island, slits the man's throat. Prophet Malcolm, however, insists that the man is the wrong person, and the one with the ransom is hiding in their midst. At night, Jeremy and Fiona are in the boat, making love. Fiona is Quinn's daughter, and this love affair between the two is not permitted. Hence, they have to keep it as secret as possible. Thomas, rather, wanders around the village at night. He stops by a house and, through an opening, he sees a man cutting across his wife's arm and letting the blood drip into a receptacle. He moves away from the house to Malcolm's. He sees Malcolm lift a cover on the floor and descend into a tunnel. Then he leaves Malcolm's and bumps into Fiona and Jeremy, before finally returning to his room. The next morning, Jeremy knocks at Thomas's door to tell him it's time for work. While they're outside working, Jeremy asks Thomas to help him carry out a task at the beach. With just the two of them at the beach, Thomas confronts Jeremy about his sister Jennifer until Jeremy admits he knew her. Jeremy tells Thomas why his sister was kidnapped. The crops are failing, the animals have stopped breeding, and they need the ransom so they won't starve. Thomas asks Jeremy why he didn't help her, and Jeremy says he was scared of Prophet Malcolm's guards. Then he goes on to advise Thomas not to pay the ransom if he has it. Thomas tells Jeremy he has to assist him accomplish his mission here on the island, while he keeps his affair with Fiona a secret. The new arrivals are summoned to the church, where Prophet Malcolm tells them that one of them has broken the rules by wandering outside after the night bell. He wants to find out the one who doesn't truly belong. He recites a part of their scripture, pauses, and, one after the other, he asks the new arrivals to continue with the words. Thomas is scared as it gets closer to his turn, but the man by his right happens to be a spy from the mainland and cannot recite the scripture. The man remains silent when it gets to him. Then he yells, "For king and country," and pulls out a sword to attack Malcolm. Thomas tries to intervene but gets slashed across his chest. The man moves further to attack Malcolm, but Malcolm is shielded by the guards, and the man gets speared by many guards at the same time. Thomas is then taken to Malcolm's house, where his daughter Andrea attends to Thomas's wound. Malcolm and Quinn still believe that the intruder with the ransom still walks in their midst. At night, Jennifer is brought out and paraded. Malcolm calls her an agent of a dying god and a weak king and says she has broken their laws. He adds that she has her kin hiding amongst them. He asks her kin to come forward so that she may be forgiven, or remain hidden and face the consequences when it's time. From his room, Thomas listens to Malcolm's speech, but he doesn't know what to do. Frustrated, he smashes his bottle of medicine against the floor. Jennifer doesn't get killed that night, however. In the morning, she's sitting on the ground, chained, some children poking her with sticks. Andrea gets Jennifer some food and orders the playing children to move away from her. She promises Jennifer that she'll do her best to see that she doesn't get harmed. The village is set to have some festivities tonight, although Quinn does not seem to approve of that, insisting that they do not have enough resources. But Malcolm thinks differently. During the festivities, they'll search the rooms of the natives, discover the one who has the ransom, as well as find the money. At night, while everyone is outside celebrating, Quinn and Malcolm begin their search in the rooms. They find a suspicious paper in Thomas's room and are convinced he's the one. Meanwhile, with the help of Jeremy, Thomas secretly goes into the tunnel he saw Malcolm enter the other night. Frank notices this and reports to Malcolm. Malcolm asks Frank to go into the tunnel from the opening in his house while he waits at the other end. Thomas reaches the other end of the tunnel. He climbs the ladder, ready to push the cover open and climb out, but he notices that Malcolm is right beside the cover above, waiting to shoot. He quickly climbs down, and since Frank is approaching from the other end, hiding in the nearby pool of blood appears to be the right thing to do. Thomas steps into the pool. Frank can't seem to find Thomas and nearly gets shot by Malcolm, who mistakes him for Thomas. A woman drenched in blood emerges from the pool and approaches Thomas, but Thomas manages to make it out of the pool. Malcolm enters a house where there is a lady trapped in roots. She is the same woman Thomas saw in the pool, except that she looks weaker here, but she is in fact the goddess of the island. Malcolm asks her why she revealed herself to Thomas, adding that Thomas won't worship her as he does. Then he cuts his palm and stretches it to the woman. He withdraws the hand and threatens to starve her if she fails to give them a good harvest. Then he stretches his hand and feeds the goddess with his blood. As the goddess is fed, the dried roots surrounding her start to blossom. Meanwhile, there is a half-naked, masked creature in the house dragging a sack, someone kicking inside of the sack. The masked creature lifts the sack and hangs it above. Thomas is surprised when Andrea brings him some clothes there in the tunnel the next morning. He pulls off his shirt, and Andrea sees some scars on his back and asks what happened to him. Thomas narrates how they were tortured in Peking for preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, and how he lost his faith in God afterwards. Fiona tells Jeremy that she's pregnant for him, and the two plan to elope to the mainland, where they can finally be free to love each other. Jeremy leaves to get something. Quinn enters the room afterwards, and after some arguments with her daughter, he stabs her in the stomach. Jeremy returns to the room and finds Fiona dead. He attacks Quinn with a knife, and the two of them scuffle before Quinn manages to run out of the room, raises a false alarm saying that Jeremy has murdered Fiona. Jeremy gets out of the room, but it's late to defend himself now. He takes off while some guards run after him, following Quinn's instruction. Quinn orders that the heathens stand be prepared for purification, an order only Malcolm has the right to give. The guards capture Jeremy and lay him on the heathen stand. Thomas tries to intervene, but he's restrained and held by the guards. Helpless and bound to the stand, Quinn drills through Jeremy's skull before Frank and Malcolm could arrive. Malcolm tries to confront Quinn, but Quinn rather calls him a false prophet before everyone tells him he is no longer the leader. Malcolm admits that he's faltered, but says he's repentant. Then Quinn asks Malcolm to prove himself by killing Thomas, whom he describes as the enemy they've long sought. He hands Malcolm a knife. Malcolm is about to slit Thomas's throat when a gunshot is heard. Frank is the one who has fired the gunshot, and now he yells, "She has to die," and runs to the house where the goddess is trapped. Thomas attacks the guards restricting him and runs into the woods, towards the house where the goddess is trapped. Malcolm and Quinn head in the same direction as well. Frank is the first to arrive at the house, but he gets attacked by the masked creature who appears to be guarding the house. Just before he collapses outside the house, he whispers to Thomas, who is lurking nearby, "Burn it all down." Thomas quickly moves away, and somehow he is able to get into the house from under the floorboards. Quinn shoots at the house, and when Malcolm tries to stop him, he shoots Malcolm in the shoulder, and Malcolm falls into the tunnel. In the house, Thomas finds Jennifer hanging in the sack above and gets her out of it, but then he gets hit on the head by the masked creature and passes out. A guard walks in and drags Jennifer out. Thomas regains consciousness and finally defeats the masked creature. Then he goes toward the trapped goddess. The goddess speaks to him in a strange language, grinning. Thomas kneels before the goddess, and she places both hands on her head for some time. She tells Thomas to set her free. Thomas gets a lantern hanging in the house and tosses it onto her. The roots around the goddess start to burn. The entire house burns, and the fire spreads to the other parts of the island. Meanwhile, somewhere in the church, Quinn has chained Andrea and Jennifer. He tells them how he plans to save the island by impregnating them and feeding the goddess with their babies. But Thomas steps into the church and stabs Quinn in the chest with a sword. Thomas plunges the sword into Quinn as deep as possible and pushes him down to the floor. Jennifer picks up Quinn's gun and tries to shoot him, but Andrea takes the gun from her and shoots at the chain, setting them free. Quinn pulls out a knife and stabs Thomas several times in the stomach. Andrea and Jennifer wrap the chain around Quinn's neck and pull him on the floor, while Thomas holds the sword firmly, cutting him open from his chest down to his abdomen. The entire island is burning. and people are heading to the seashore to get into the boats. Thomas is badly hurt and can't make it out of the island. He convinces Jennifer and Andrea to leave without him. He lies on the ground, his hand on the part he got stabbed. His blood touches the ground and a plant sprouts on the spot. The grass around him turns verdant and more lively, some piercing into his face. And then there is Malcolm, standing beside him and smiling. If you enjoyed watching the video, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.